Nat. Huh? I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and you're watching the Cartoon Palooza. Contrary to what most people have been telling me how I should pronounce adaptation versus adaption, I found out that adaptation is actually the older form of the word adaptation. So with that said, it's time to watch an adaptation of Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. I was surprised when I asked my followers on Twitter if they considered the Lorax an iconic Dr. Seuss character. Sure, he's not obscure and the mustache is pretty unforgettable, but he isn't like the Grinch or the Cat in the Hat in popularity, or at least for me growing up. I actually discovered the Lorax far later in elementary school, and then after that, the story kinda stuck with me. For one, the story shows off Dr. Seuss's strength as a political cartoonist, and features two caricatures of the modern capitalist who's just out to make money, and the socialist who's there for the interest of others over himself, even if it's not as effective as the corporate machine. And trust me, this is as far as politics will go in my review. I'm not going to be like other reviewers and use this as a political platform. However, I always found that the story would be hard to adapt onto film. That was until I saw the Frangling produced short right after reading the story. Even as I get older, it's one of my favorite Dr. Seuss shorts. It still holds an emotional punch by keeping the story's ambiguous ending, and, well, it's friggin' hilarious. So my hopes weren't completely up when I found out that Universal was going to adapt the Lorax, and they got Chris Melandri, who produced Horton Hears a Who, to work on it. So, what could go wrong?
Shake that bottom line.
I mean, seriously, what could go wrong? Why? So the story about where and what happened to the Lorax begins with the Lorax telling our story. Interesting choice of narrative. Needville is past the use of having needs, and everybody is happy with buying the latest tech that they think they need. How do I know about this? They sing about it. They do that a lot in this film. But it's okay, the characters are self-aware while singing this song that they're buying useless crap, so therefore it makes it funny, right? Also, get used to the musical numbers because they're not going away. It's like an animated movie in the 90s where everything has to have a song for every action and transition. Be warned, because there will be music, bouncing, and smiling around every corner. So the movie begins to resemble the actual book when less than 10 minutes in, better than the Cat in the Hat which takes 15, our hero Ted, subtle, goes out to the edge of town, not to go out to the Once-ler and find out what happened to the Lorax, but because the girl next door wants a tree. I would have preferred if the writers built around this giant conspiracy that Ted has to figure out, or someone name drops the Lorax and he goes out to the edge of town to find out, only to realize that he's living in an illusion. But no, it's this.
So if, say, I'm just thinking out loud here, if a guy somehow got you one...
Well, I'd probably marry him on the spot.
He got horny. So once Ted actually meets the Once-ler at the spot of the lifted Lorax, the faceless Once-ler tells his story, and face, oh my god, why does he have a face? Unlike the story where the Once-ler is a faceless caricature of the greedy capitalist, here he is a creative entrepreneur who wants to impress his abusive family. Because as all movies tell us, all villains must come from bad households. When the Once-ler finally chops down the first truffle tree, out comes the Lorax from the stump, right? No, there's a big spectacle where there's magic and lightning, and we get our Lorax with the voice of Danny DeVito. Now, being a kid from the 90s, this is something I would expect since every bald, short character was played by Danny DeVito. However, if you grew up with Danny DeVito, all the characters that he would play would usually be the greedy capitalist. You know, like the Once-ler. So, instead of him saying this...
I'm the Lorax, guardian of the forest. I speak for the trees.
I kind of imagine him saying this.
I dropped my monster condom that I used for my magnum dong.
So rather than telling Ted outright that the whole story and get the movie over with, the movie attempts to have a similar story with the next Once-ler who's a shoo-in for Shemp, which is ironic since Shemp was a shoo-in for Curly. His scheme is to, get this, have people buy his clean air to save themselves from the polluted air. Growing a truffle tree, as Ted wants to do, would be bad for business since trees produce clean air via photosynthesis. Here's the thing though, plants that produce photosynthesis have to be green or have chlorophyll, and from what I gathered about Trufflas, they're not green! The plot is supposed to complement the Lorax story like the mayor in Horton Hears a Who. However, it feels more like a distraction and filler keeping us from the character in the title. Anyways, when we get back to the actual Lorax, we learned that before the Sneed became a big seller, the Lorax and the Once-ler tried to have a mutual agreement and even spark a friendship. Now, I would usually argue about this since it doesn't have to do with anything in the book. However, I think this is one of the few artistic licensings that the creators did that kind of works. Even though the two guys come from different backgrounds and have different ideologies, they can still set themselves apart and actually strike a friendship. It's relatable since even in real life, Democrats can still get along with Republicans, even though their political views are opposite. Heck, even in the book, it's indicated that both people have some semblance of respect and reason for the other, which is what makes these characters strong and pretty iconic for people. However, since this is going by the book, literally, all the nefarious acts that level the Trufflas leading to the creation of Needville is condensed into a 3-minute song called How Bad Can I Be? Coincidentally, there's a song in the Once-ler sings in the original short similar to this, however the version tends to take a slower, sarcastic tone and make it, trendier. Actually, from what I gather by searching around the internet, this song has sparked quite a fandom. There's a lot of fan art of Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka crossed over with the Once-ler like in this movie. A lot of people are also split on the song since it actually makes the anti-pollution moral kinda messed if people can enjoy it for an ironic, big and loud musical number. However, this movie already has a dozen other big and loud musical numbers, which makes this one forgettable by comparison. So when we finally get to Lorax pointing out what the Once-ler has done wrong, he lifts himself up and leaves his unforgettable rock with the words, unless. Here, Ted is left with the ambiguous choice of correcting society's wrongdoing. However, since Ted represents the audience, we don't know if he actually does grow the tree. The movie ends right here, just like it did in the book. So, that was the Lorax, and oh my god, the movie's still going on? So yeah, God forbid if this movie wants an audience to think, we have a cartoon chase scene, the villain is thwarted, Ted gets the girl I could care less about, and then he and the town, gasp, sing another loud and over-the-top song that's self-aware that it's loud and over-the-top. Well, it's best we don't waste the singing talent of Troy from High School Musical, and that pretty much sums up the movie. Trust me. I got a few things to say about this one. First, the pluses. The movie isn't as bad as The Cat in the Hat, but that doesn't say that much. I like the attempt to humanize the Once-ler and actually make him an empathetic character. I even like Ted's grandmother, played by Betty White, who helps him find the Once-ler. She's pretty much plays the coolest grandmother since my own sit-through. However, everything else ranges from mediocre to flat-out annoying. I want to praise the animation, but for the most part, Blue Sky Animations has done a better job animating Dr. Seuss characters, particularly the human facial expressions, which gets downright creepy the way you look at them make human expressions. For the rest, it's just loud songs that think they're clever, that they're pointing out that it's loud and annoying, which doesn't change the fact that they're still loud and annoying. It's mostly filler, which turns a short story into a leftover animated flick from the 90s, now made in 2012. I'm still going to be kind since I think the biggest fault comes from the story it's based off. If you're a child who just saw this movie or, not really familiar with the character of the Lorax, you'll be fine with it. But honestly, take my word, I would prefer the parent, guardian, sibling, all the above, read the kid the book. Because no matter how small or how you'd want to look at it, you should take my word and forget about it.
That's why he's the genius! It even rhymes!
Yeah, damn straight I did. I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and thanks for watching this episode of the Cartoon Palooza.
How bad can I be? I'm just doing what comes naturally. How bad